Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the Emperor's intentions with the Traitor Primarchs. A general spoiler warning to begin, as today we will be referencing events from across the Warhammer 40k universe, so you have been warned. But with that said, let's waste no time and just jump straight in. Okay, so today we're having a good old school lore chat about something I don't really know the answer to, and that is the Emperor's intentions regarding the Traitor Primarchs. Throughout the lore and since the time of the heresy, all of the remaining Traitor Primarchs have ascended to demonhood, save possibly Omegon if he is indeed still alive, which is a conversation for another day. In becoming or ascending to demonhood, the Traitor Primarchs have had their very souls enslaved by the gods of chaos, some to a particular patron, such as Mortarion and Nurgle, others more simply blessed by the Pantheon entire, such as Lorgar for example, perhaps retaining a sliver more of free will or choice in their actions. Either way, their very existence became tied to the warp, creatures now of the immaterium instead of the material galaxy, and as such they became the very opposites of everything they were originally created to be. Yeah, sure, the Emperor may have used the warp to create them, but he created them to conquer the material galaxy, to lead his legions on his great crusade. And that's what they did, until it all went terribly wrong. And with the Traitor Primarchs becoming enslaved, even having sided with the corrupted Horus in the first place, you would assume that means they are lost to the Imperium forever. Nothing more than another demon to be destroyed. And that would be the Emperor's view too. And indeed that was apparently confirmed in the heresy novel Fury of Magnus, wherein offering Magnus his chance of redemption, it was clearly stated because he was the only one not given over to the ruinous powers. Unlike your brothers beyond the walls, you are still my son. Your mind was always the strongest of them all, but chaos has wormed its way too deeply into their hearts and minds to ever be removed. The Emperor was obviously immensely powerful, but removing the taint of chaos appears to be something outside his power, at least as deeply as it's embedded in the Traitor Primarchs. And that makes sense to me. Sure, the Emperor can destroy a demon, give it a true death. He could destroy the Traitor Primarchs, but how could he cleanse a soul? A bitter mind? I dunno, I guess if anyone could, he could, but it definitely feels like a far more ambiguous area. Even Horus at the end begged for his father to end it, because he knew he was lost. And those lost to chaos are lost. It's the way it's always been. However, then came Guilliman's confrontation with Mortarion. This is one we've obviously discussed a lot, the last real major lore moment concerning Guilliman, and one of the most epic moments ever. At the height of the plague wars of Ultramar, Guilliman would lay dying at his brother Mortarion's feet, inflicted with a plague of Nurgle, designed specifically to kill a Primarch. However, Guilliman, on the cusp of death, would be saved by the Emperor. His wounds healed and armour reforged, Guilliman would blaze with a brilliant white power, where before a trembling Mortarion, he would state, "You are a traitor," Guilliman said, in a voice that was not quite his own. "You have brought low all that could have been, but you are as much a victim as a monster, Mortarion. Perhaps one day you might be saved. Until then, You must go back to the master you chose. Now, aside from this just being goosebump tremblingly epic, with Guilliman then doing his best Liam Neeson impression on Nurgle, telling him he's coming for him, and that he doesn't speak for himself, but the Emperor of mankind, it's also obviously a huge difference to the Emperor's comments to Magnus some 10,000 years earlier, concerning the Traitor Primarchs. Here, you'd assume the Emperor could have permanently destroyed Mortarion. It's clear he had the power to do so for me, healing Guilliman, reforging his armour, before burning the very Garden of Nurgle. Yet he didn't. He didn't remove a huge enemy and threat to the Imperium. Now, yes, outside the law, logically speaking, we know that could never happen. However, there obviously has to be an in-law reason. And it appears because here, the Emperor had sympathy for his lost son. You are as much a victim as a monster. The same with Horus in the Heresy. The Emperor knows it's the gods of chaos who are the true enemy, that the Primarchs are simply being used. But it does raise the question of what are the Emperor's intentions with the Traitor Primarchs now. With the remark of someday you might be saved, has his opinion or view on the Traitor Primarchs changed? As I said at the start today, I don't have the answers here. I'm not quite sure where my thinking lays on this matter. It certainly appears the Emperor doesn't want to destroy them, as I have to believe he could have in that moment, deciding instead to allow Mortarion to go back to Nurgle. So he must now believe redemption is somehow possible, even if clearly not being quite certain on the matter yet. Maybe someday you might be saved. It's pretty clear the Emperor isn't even sure himself, but that it's a possibility he maybe wants to try and achieve. Is there somehow, some way the Emperor has retained his human affection and attachment to the Primarchs? The bonds of humanity that grew and surprised even Malcador and Valdor, even despite, and spoiler warning here for the Siege of Terror, despite the Emperor separating his humanity before the fight with Horus, shooting it off into the warp somewhere. Is this that shard of the Emperor here? It's a pure white light that pours out of Guilliman, despite quite clearly being the Emperor. It's not that common gold we are all used to. And Mortarion feels something huge and dangerous moving through the warp just before the Emperor's possession. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. While most likely just the Emperor in general, because hey, Mortarion certainly hasn't interacted with him in 10,000 years. Who's to say it isn't that more human aspect of the Emperor in particular? It would undoubtedly not be a part of the Emperor Mortarion would have felt since the Great Crusade. So hey, it's certainly possible. I mean, there has to be a reason the light coming out of Guilliman was white instead of gold, right? Maybe with it being so immersed and close to the Garden of Nurgle, the Emperor was simply unable to destroy Mortarion. However, I have to disagree with that. His words don't imply that for me. It feels much more like a genuine choice by the Emperor. It feels far more like he allowed Nurgle to take Mortarion back. And given he then burns the garden, I don't think power was the issue. So, for me, if I had to sum it all up on how I'm feeling right now, I'd say it feels like a definite change from the Emperor's words to Magnus in the Heresy. In my opinion, the Emperor could have destroyed Mortarion, but in feeling sympathy for his son, he chose not to, and would prefer to redeem, cure him if he ever can, return him to the Mortarion he was created to be. Does that extend to the rest of the Traitor Primarchs? Well, I'd think so, yes. Even though Mortarion was largely forced by Nurgle, it was still Mortarion's choice at the end of the day. And the Emperor never had the best of relationships with him anyway. Certainly not as good as, say, Magnus. So I'd think this could have been any Traitor Primarch in truth. And the Emperor's actions here would have been the same. Obviously, I think the odds of us ever seeing it transpire are virtually zero. But I think I have to say the Emperor now views redemption as preferable over wrath when it comes to his fallen sons. I guess the question is now, why? Is it some form of care, that lingering human attachment, or something else entirely? And was that white power pouring out of Guilliman a clue? As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow, and if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.